Revealed, how one single dad's incredible act transformed a pregnant woman's life forever. Jack squeezed the last of the concrete into the mold, the physical strain of the day weighing heavily on his shoulders. Each breath pulled in the familiar scent of sweat and grit that clung to him, background noise to the chaos of his thoughts. At 35, he had always been a fighter, but today felt different. Today, he questioned every choice he had made. The nagging uncertainty clawed at him. Could he really be enough for Mia? Would he remain steadfast, even as life threw relentless punches at them? As he wiped the sweat from his brow, his mind drifted to Mia, her laughter lighting up their small home like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. But every night as he closed the door to her room, a shadow loomed over him, an unshakable fear that whispered he was failing. He was giving her the best he could, but was that enough? Could he really navigate through life's complexities as a single dad fighting paycheck to paycheck? The weight of responsibility pressed against him like a concrete slab, heavy and oppressive. On his walk home that chilly autumn afternoon, Jack pulled his jacket tighter, trying to ward off the biting wind. The crunch of leaves underfoot was drowned out by the racing thoughts swirling in his head. And then he saw her, a pregnant woman huddled under a threadbare blanket on the sidewalk. Her sunken eyes glanced up at him, a spark of spirit flickering against an overwhelming sense of despair. For a moment, his heart fought against his mind. Should he bypass her and keep his distance, or find his courage and step forward? Before he could pull away, he was beside her, compelled by a deep-rooted empathy he couldn't ignore. "Hey, can I get you something warm to eat?" he managed, his usual self-assuredness slipping. As he spoke, the weight of moral dilemma settled in his gut. His friends and family would say it wasn't his responsibility to help, that extending his already limited resources would only invite trouble. Yet here he was, teetering on the edge of societal expectations and a sense of duty that wouldn't let him walk away. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah became a reluctant part of their lives, drifting in yet shedding the darkness that seemed to follow her. Jack saw pieces of Mia in her humor, her spirit, her longing for acceptance. Yet with every shared laugh, he felt the tight grip of doubt squeezing harder. He recalled the judgmental looks of the townsfolk, the whispers that would follow. Could he balance this unconventional arrangement while ensuring Mia felt secure, safe, and loved? As Sarah opened up about her dreams of being an artist, Jack felt a flicker of hope. But that hope collided with reality when her past returned to haunt them, an ex-boyfriend threatening to shatter everything they had built. The tensions escalated dangerously, each day tightening the noose around Jack's resolve. Here he stood, caught between the warmth of newfound connection and the escalating whispers that would drown them all. Would he choose to defend Sarah and face the backlash of the town? Or would he turn away, sacrificing their bond to protect his daughter from more than he could possibly understand? With every heartbeat, the specter of uncertainty loomed larger. Jack wrestled with the choices laid before him, the reality of what lay ahead grinding at his insides. In that moment, with the world outside growing darker and the sound of an impending storm rumbling in the distance, he knew this battle was only beginning. Jack stood at the threshold of his modest home, the cold air wrapping around him like a murky fog that refused to lift. The anticipation of the storm mirrored the brewing turmoil inside him. Mia was likely asleep, but the thought of her innocent face made his heart ache. He took a deep breath, trying to anchor himself in the reality that there was no turning back. Sarah's vulnerabilities had drawn him in, exposing not only her fears but also those he kept buried, fear that he might lose everything if he got too close. Dragging himself away from the door, he stepped into the dim light of the living room. The clutter of toys and art supplies melded into a canvas of their life together, reflecting joy but also his constant battle with chaos. As Jack gathered scattered toys, his mind raced with the implications of where this path with Sarah might lead. Would he come to regret this decision, or would it fortify his family in ways he hadn't imagined? The following day began with a peculiar sense of urgency. He found himself crafting an uncharacteristically detailed plan. Jack realized that to protect Mia and now Sarah, who was becoming like family, he would have to reclaim control of the narrative surrounding them. Each step required careful calculation, and he felt a surge of determination that had long been absent. As he met Sarah for coffee, he scrutinized her demeanor closely. She was his only ally in this storm, yet she seemed distracted. The humidity in the cafe didn't help, nervous energy crackled in the air between them. He decided it was time to confront the threats head-on. "Sarah," he began, his voice steady, "we need to talk about your ex." Her eyes darted away, shame flickering like a candle ready to go out. "I didn't want to bring that up." "I understand," Jack interrupted gently, "but we can't afford to take risks. If he comes after us, we need a plan." Expressing this fortitude ignited something within him. A hidden wellspring of resilience bubbled to the surface as he saw Sarah's eyes widen with respect. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about carving a safe space for Mia, too. As the days turned into a week, Jack found hidden talent surfacing, abilities he didn't know he possessed. Balancing work, caregiving, and now, acting as a de facto protector brought unexpected clarity. He learned to initialize conversations with those in the community, transforming judgment into understanding. His assertiveness grew as he attended town hall meetings, slowly becoming a voice for his family while combating the whispers that surrounded them, but with every step forward, he wrestled with thoughts of what lay beneath. Doubt still gripped at his heart, reminding him of the fragility of pride. He couldn't ignore the moments of fear that knotted in his stomach, an ever-present reminder that the community's acceptance was a fickle ally. Meeting Sarah that Friday night, he brought her the copies he had printed of the previous town's meeting minutes, detailing those who had spoken out against dissent. "Look," he gestured, "we're not alone. There are people here who care." "The names you listed," Sarah's voice trembled, filled with disbelief. "They wouldn't support someone like me." "Maybe not," he replied earnestly, "but if we stand together, we can change that." As the tension swelled between them, an electric charge cloaked in what could be trust both caught a glimpse of what they could become, despite any naysayers. They were fighting not just for themselves but for the life Mia would grow into. However, whispers of Sarah's past still lurked like shadows around the corner. Would he be brave enough to confront her ex if the moment came? The realization dawned on him that this skirmish over the heart of their makeshift family was only beginning. The storm was brewing, and he knew he couldn't stand motionless in the harbor, not while his family was afloat on uncertain seas. But would he possess the resolve to navigate those turbulent waters? As the clouds darkened, Jack felt the winds shift, pushing him toward a confrontation he could no longer ignore. The moment of truth was drawing near, and he stood at the precipice, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Jack spent the weekend in a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, each one fighting for dominance in his mind. He had felt the electric current of possibility with Sarah, yet the shadows of doubt lingered, whispering threats of the past. He paced the length of the living room, the toys strewn across the floor becoming an obstacle course for his mind. No matter how eager he was to protect his newfound family, each plan seemed to wade in murky waters. On Sunday morning, as sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the clutter, he realized that he had to confront not just Sarah's fears but also his own. He firmly believed that love and compassion could forge a path forward, but he had to face the consequences of taking Sarah's hand. It became clear to him that while partnership and collective strength were essential, he needed to tap into his voice as an individual, too. If he were to protect his daughter and Sarah, he had to find his own way to navigate the storm. After a restless night of reflection, he decided it was time to embrace his role fully, both as a father and protector. His first step was reaching out to the few voices in the community who he thought would stand firm against any threats from Sarah's ex. He meticulously crafted messages, articulating exactly why he believed their unity mattered now more than ever. Each message seemed to lift part of the burden from his shoulders. It was as if he was piecing together a shield, an armor through which he would not only protect Sarah but also assert his newly discovered strength. When he met with Sarah that day, the air felt thick with anticipation. Had he done enough? Were his efforts in the community enough to ease both their fears? She could sense his energy and asked, "Jack, are you okay? You seem different." "I am," he replied confidently, a newfound clarity revealing itself in his tone. "I think I finally understand how much courage it takes to love and to fight for what's right." Sarah's eyes searched his, absorbing the determination that seemed to radiate from him. "And what about facing my ex?" Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her past pressing down on them both. "I can't pretend it doesn't exist. But I'm not running from it, or from you." The conversation shifted something in their dynamic. They were no longer just two individuals navigating the complexities of life but a unit, one that could withstand outside pressures and fears. They began brainstorming strategies, preparing a plan should her ex's path converge with theirs. That evening, Jack attended another town hall meeting. A few supportive families were present, and he recognized each one as an ally in his pursuit for community acceptance. It was now or never to forge connections. He took the opportunity to share Sarah's story not as a victim but as a resilient woman determined to create a better life for her child. Each word came from a place of authenticity, and as he spoke, he could see nods of understanding ripple through the room. After the meeting, several attendees approached him, expressing admiration for his bravery. Their support felt like a steadier foundation beneath a shaky future. Jack could feel his confidence swell, a stark contrast to the uncertainty that had clouded his mind for weeks. He was not just an internal player anymore, he had stepped onto the field of battle for his family. Yet, as he drove home, the doubts began to rise again, whispering that it was only a moment of clarity, and that eventual storms would soon follow. He needed to prepare for the confrontation with Sarah's ex that felt imminent. He had promised Sarah that he would have her back. The weight of that promise crystallized within him, steering him toward an unfamiliar resilience. As they sat together on the porch that night, the sky darkening above, he knew they were teetering on the edge of transformation. Their pasts were entangled, but their determination to forge a new narrative anchored them. Jack locked eyes with Sarah, their shared understanding igniting new strength. "We're starting something new. We can't let our pasts dictate our future." In that moment, he realized that the battle ahead wasn't one to merely survive, but to redefine both of their lives. But as he uttered those words, a figure loomed in the shadows of the street, a silhouette too familiar to ignore. The stillness shattered as Jack's heart raced, the weight of his fears crashing over him. The confrontation was upon them, and there would be no turning back now. Would love and resilience be enough to weather the storm? The shadows lurking at the end of the driveway elongated, defining the figure that precipitated the tightening grip of Jack's anxiety. The still air crackled with unseen tension. He swallowed hard, tapping into the newfound resilience he had mustered in recent weeks. This moment, which dismissed the romantic optimism of before, was primordial, a reckoning veiled in uncertainty. The figure stepped forward, slowly slipping from the darkness. It was Sarah's ex, eyes glinting with a mixture of contempt and something deeper, something more menacing. Jack's pulse quickened, yet he felt an odd calm developing somewhere in the core of his being. This was the confrontation he had anticipated. "Jack," the figure sneered, lips curling into a bitter smile. "I see you've made yourself comfortable." Jack straightened his back, shifting from the role of a passive observer to that of a protective shield. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice unwavering. Inside, however, a whirlpool of doubt churned. Was he really equipped for this? "Shouldn't I? I'm just looking out for my family." Jack's mind raced. Family. The word hung in the air, ricocheting between them. "You lost that privilege," Jack responded, summoning a firmness that surprised even him. He could feel Sarah behind him, the warmth of her presence reinforcing his resolve. This was about her, about their daughter. "Let us be clear," the ex spat, stepping closer, narrowing the gap. "You think you can just play house? She's still my kid. I will do whatever it takes to get her back." Jack considered this, threads of fear and anger knitting together in his chest. It was both pathetic and frightening the lengths an ex-partner might go to retain control. He reflexively glanced back at Sarah, whose face reflected a complex interplay of dread and hope. The uncertainty of what life had in store for them may have been daunting, but here was a chance to challenge it. "Let us talk then." Jack's voice took on a tone of determined diplomacy, even as his heart hammered. "But know this, you will not intimidate Sarah or her daughter anymore. Those days are over." Instinctively, he began to map out potential paths forward, flickering with possibility as he navigated the confrontation. This was a defining moment not just for them but for him. Would he continue to shrink back into shadows, or could he actually seize the moment and channel it into something constructive? Each heartbeat reminded him of Sarah's trust. Each breath became a vow. "Trust is earned, not demanded," Jack asserted, taking a step forward. He couldn't allow intimidation to shape the direction of their family. "I won't be scared into silence." The excess facade momentarily faltered, revealing a glimpse of uncertainty about how to respond to Jack's strength. Jack sensed a shift, like the tide turning, the prow of a ship cutting through stormy waters. Would this audacious stand matter? Would it alter the course of their lives? As the two men faced off, a hesitant breeze whispered through the leaves overhead, accentuating the urgency of the moment. Jack felt the weight of not just family but of love, the kind that forced him to confront the past to protect the future, and it worked. The ex took a step back, eyes narrowed, as if recalibrating his approach. Jack seized this moment of hesitance. "You're welcome to see your daughter, but you will not dictate her life. We will protect her together." The tension hung thick, laden with unspoken conditions. But inside, Jack knew something crucial had changed. He had shifted from passive to assertive, challenging an adversary no longer mired in self-doubt. That night, Jack returned to the porch, heart heavy but empowered. They had a new reality to navigate, and it wasn't going to be simple. As Sarah joined him, her hand found his, a silent pledge emanating from their intertwined fingers. Jack's gaze drifted back to the darkened street. What would be the next challenge? He could almost hear the echoes of their conversation ring within him like distant thunder. The sense of vulnerability still clung to him, yet a strength was growing, born from his willingness to face the storm, yet within that growing strength loomed another layer, a question unresolved. As Jack stared into the darkness where Sarah's ex had vanished, he wondered about the length someone might go to reclaim what was lost. Would they be prepared for whatever came next, or was this just the beginning of a much larger battle? The dawn light slanted through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the porch where Jack sat with his thoughts tangled in the bramble of uncertainty. The aftershocks of last night's confrontation still rippled through him, teasing at the edges of his confidence. He had stood firm, yes, but the underlying anxiety thrummed like a persistent bass note, reminding him that the battle was far from over. Jack knew he had to do more than just confront Sarah's ex. He had to fortify their home. He felt an urgent need to create a sanctuary emotionally and physically for Sarah and her daughter. Ideas raced through his mind, quickening with each heartbeat. Establishing boundaries wouldn't be enough. He needed a plan, a structure that would support their collective well-being. Today, he decided, would be a day of action. He rose from the porch with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to tackle the domestic sphere, to transform it into a fortress of positivity and safety. He started with his workspace in the basement, a chaotic assortment of papers and tools scattered in disarray. What was once simply an extension of his hobbies now felt like a reflection of his scattered mind. Jack took a deep breath, shaking off the remnants of last night's tension, and focused on reimagining his surroundings. As he sorted through piles, he unearthed photographs of Sarah and her daughter, moments of laughter captured in time, remnants of joy that made his heart swell. He pushed forward, clearing surfaces, each item discarded representing a step away from fear and towards intention. Along the way, he discovered he had a knack for design he didn't know existed, creating an organized space that could harbor creativity and provide solace. The act of physical organization uncorked a well of clarity within him. Every item he placed in its rightful spot felt like a piece of their future falling into place. Jack paused and contemplated what he truly wanted to build. A home should offer safety, laughter, and connection, a reflection of shared lives intertwined. As he stood back, surveying the transformation, a thought flashed in his mind: he could offer Sarah something beyond security. What if he could help her find her own strength? They were in a partnership, but could she become genuinely empowered in their shared life? With newfound resolve, he decided that encouraging her to pursue her passions would deepen their connection. Over lunch, he casually broached the subject. "Sarah," he said, trying to infuse casual warmth into the conversation, "I was thinking about your art. You never told me what inspired you to create those pieces. Have you thought about doing more with it?" A flicker of surprise crossed her face, quickly replaced by caution. She hesitated. "It just felt like a dream. I haven't done it in ages. Why not start again?" "I know how much it means to you," Jack encouraged, sensing a theme emerging. Encouraging her creativity could not only reinvigorate her sense of self but also reinforce their family dynamic. "What if it doesn't work out?" The uncertainty dripped from her words, and Jack bolstered his resolve. "Then we'll find a way to make it work. You'll never know unless you try. I'll be here, supporting you, no matter the outcome." Her eyes softened, and he saw a glimmer of hope spark between them. Jack allowed himself a small smile. The genuine connection they formed through this conversation felt vital, as if they were both carving their own paths yet walking side by side. As the day wore on, a lingering thought nagged at him. The echoes of his previous encounter resurfaced, mingling with the mantra of support he had just bestowed upon Sarah. A worrying realization crept into his mind: what if their adversary attempted to sabotage their progress? Only time would reveal the truth of that looming threat. Jack understood that confronting not just the ex but their own vulnerabilities was crucial in nurturing their new bond. Each challenge carved resilience, and the road ahead was surely laden with undetermined obstacles. Just then, a subtle noise from outside caught his ears, a rustle, perhaps, or the whisper of footsteps. He glanced toward the window, heart racing anew. What unexpected challenge awaited him now? The atmospheric tension bore the weight of uncertainty, poised to unfold in an instant. Jack's heart raced at the sound, the soft scuffle of shoes on gravel. Instinct urged him to act, to protect Sarah and her daughter, but his feet remained rooted to the floor. Was this anxiety or courage at play, he wondered, weighing his need for action against the quiet stillness of the moment. He moved towards the window slowly, the world outside coming into focus as he peeked through the curtain. Nearby, the remnants of a dusklit afternoon painted an idyllic scene, but it was shattered by a reality he could no longer ignore. There, at the edge of their property, stood Sarah's ex, a figure who embodied all the insecurities he'd been trying to overcome. With every instinct screaming for him to confront the man, Jack hesitated, unsure if now was the time. The man's posture exuded a mixture of bravado and a mess of unresolved emotions that mirrored Jack's own. But today wasn't merely about defense, it demanded a strategy, a plan beyond mere reaction. Taking a deep breath, Jack stepped back from the window, his mind aligning itself with purpose. First, he had to safeguard their emotional landscape. He sensed the impending tension, weighing the need for confrontation against the importance of dialogue, of setting boundaries and outlining terms of engagement. He could choose to be reactive or proactive, and he knew what was at stake. That he moved through the house, finding Sarah and her daughter lost in a world of arts and crafts, laughter punctuating the air. Despite the outside disturbance, he had created an ambience of safety. He cleared his throat, drawing Sarah's attention away from the colorful chaos of paint and paper. Her eyes flicked toward him, an unspoken question hovering between them. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" he said, keeping his voice steady as he gestured toward the kitchen. He needed her clarity, her strength, just as much as he needed to have a plan. Once they were settled at the table, he faced her, grappling with how to frame the impending confrontation. "Sarah," Jack started carefully, "I saw your ex outside." The air in the room changed, charged with unspoken fears and hesitations. "I think it's time we address this issue together." Her face tightened, and he could almost see her mind working through layers of anxiety and anger. "What do you want to do?" she asked, her voice steady yet vulnerable. "I think we should set clear boundaries. It's essential that he knows you're moving forward together with me, without any interference." Jack held her gaze, feeling an unexpected rush of connection blossom. This was more than a husband protecting his family, this was about cooperation, empowerment, and shared navigation through tumult. "What if he pushes back?" Sarah asked, biting her lip in concern. "That's a risk we must take, but I'll be right there beside you," he reaffirmed, trying to instill confidence. "You deserve to reclaim your space and your life, free from fear." As they discussed their strategy, each idea brought a wave of strength washing over Jack. The simple act of planning together merged their lives in a way he hadn't fully grasped before. He sensed Sarah's apprehension gradually dissipating, as determination took its place. Through the union of their resolve, they crafted an approach that underlined their partnership, but deep in his gut, another layer of doubt settled in. Could they truly withstand the backlash of her ex? Would this spark a confrontation in the field of bruised egos and unresolved conflicts that neither had truly anticipated? The voices of uncertainty rose, but he commanded them to quiet with the resolve he had just found. Fueled by a surge of courage and clarity, Jack stood from the table, direction emerging from within. Facing an adversary, no matter how daunting, was part of their evolution. "Let us handle it together," he said, his tone both firm and optimistic. Just then, a loud knock on the door splintered their moment. It reverberated through the home like a jarring alarm bell, ringing loudly the stakes of their newfound determination. Jack's heart plunged anew, they had been discovered. And the true confrontation awaited them. Who stood at that door, and what would be the repercussions of their stand? The air around him crackled with tension, an electric charge only the uncertain moments of confrontation could bring. The door rattled with urgency, pulling Jack away from his thoughts. It was a punctuation point to the burgeoning resolve he had found, a moment that demanded action. "Stay here," he instructed Sarah, though he quickly noticed the flicker of defiance in her eyes. She was no damsel in distress, and he admired that about her. Yet, he felt a protective instinct surge within him. This was about more than just physical safety, it was a dance of emotional stakes and individual rights. As he approached the door, the knock thundered again. This time it felt like a challenge, a summons to confront all he had been building up to. He peered through the peephole and saw the familiar scowl etched onto the face of Sarah's ex. The man appeared rigid, his body tense as if prepared for a showdown. Jack's mind raced through countless scenarios, the possible insults, the threats, the challenges to his relationship with Sarah. What if this confrontation turned ugly? But the clarity they had gleaned from their planning flooded back in. He was ready, or at least he had to be. "I need to handle this," he said, turning back to Sarah, who leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. Her stance screamed solidarity, but he could taste her anxiety in the air. "I'll talk to him." "Jack," she said, her voice low yet steady. "I want to be part of this. Don't shut me out." There was so much weight in her words, and Jack felt it keenly. This wasn't a matter of protecting her, this was a shared boundary, a lesson in mutual strength. Nodding, he opened the door just wide enough to let the world of confrontation seep in. "Can I help you?" he said, projecting confidence despite the knot in his stomach. "Where is Sarah?" her ex demanded, his tone dripping with entitlement. The man didn't even attempt pleasantries, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. Jack took a breath, grounding himself. "She's inside, and we need to talk about how you're going to interact with her moving forward. What right do you have to speak for her?" The man sneered, taking a step closer, a belligerent energy radiating off him. "That's where you're wrong," Jack replied, turning the tension into something productive. "She has every right to choose who's in her life. We're doing this together." His words seemed to hang in the air, challenging the man's aggression. For a brief second, Jack was amazed at his own boldness. It was as if he had tapped into a latent power, a voice that had been buried for too long. He had always shied away from conflict, but here stood a version of himself he didn't know existed, one that was determined and assertive. Together. The excess laughter was cynical, devoid of any warmth. She'll see that you're just a rebound. She's not going to want you beside her forever. That jab hit Jack deeper than he wanted to admit, but he forced it down, determined not to let this interaction derail him. You're wrong. Sarah deserves happiness, and I'm not afraid to fight for that. The air between them sparked with palpable tension. He could almost see the walls of their conflict colliding, the thread of their histories weaving an intricate tapestry of pain and misunderstanding. Fight if you want, the ex replied, his defiance barely hiding his own apprehension. But I'll always be in her life. You can't change that. I'm not here to change anything, I'm here to respect her choice, Jack replied, feeling a surge of energy flow through him. But then, a troubling thought surfaced. Was he truly willing to handle the reality of a fight? The encounter forced Jack to wrestle with the fragility of his own resolve, juxtaposed against the fierce desire to protect what they had built together. He sensed Sarah behind him, offering an anchor. There was strength and unity that could potentially overpower any animosity. As the door stood between them like a fragile barrier, Jack felt an overwhelming weight shift within him. This was about more than just boundaries, it was a test of his character and determination. Just then, the excess phone buzzed loudly against the porch's wooden floor, breaking the heated momentum. Both men paused, tension thick in the air as they awaited the next move in this intricate game of wills. The moment held its breath, and Jack knew in an instant that he had only scratched the surface of what this confrontation could reveal. What unforeseen challenges awaited them, now that the layers of their lives were peeling away? Jack's heart raced again, this time fueled not by fear but by the exhilarating uncertainty of what lay ahead. The excess laughter faded awkwardly as he glanced down at the buzzing phone. Jack seized the moment. This was his opportunity to regain control of the unfolding narrative. The uncertainty of the encounter hung in the air like a taut string, ready to snap. In that brief pause, he realized he wasn't dealing simply with an adversary, he was standing at a crossroads of personal evolution. Look, Jack said, his voice gaining steadiness. You can keep trying to assert your control over Sarah, but she deserves better. And frankly, so do you. Whatever this is needs to stop. Each word felt like a stepping stone, moving him deeper into the territory of self-assertion. It was as if clarity descended upon him, illuminating the path toward personal strength he didn't know he needed to traverse. For someone who claims to love her, you're not exactly putting her first, he continued, watching the ex as he grappled with disbelief and agitation. You're standing here, making demands. But have you even considered what she wants? Jack's heart pounded with each declaration. He was no longer the bystander in his life, forced to endure toxic confrontations or watch others trample over his voice. He connected with an internal drive clamoring for change, compelling him to protect not just Sarah but also a part of himself that had been buried under years of passivity. Just then, Jack caught Sarah's gaze over his shoulder. Her eyes shimmered with pride, a silent affirmation that fueled his courage. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about them, the partnership they were forging in the chaos. I'm done with living in the shadows of your narrative, Jack said, feeling the adrenaline propelling his words forward. You either start respecting Sarah's choices, or you'll face consequences that extend beyond arguments. Are you ready to take responsibility for your actions, or will you drag this out further? The ex flinched at the weight of Jack's statement, and for a fleeting moment, doubt flickered across his face. But then he grinned again, an expression devoid of vulnerability. Whatever you say, man. Just remember, I'm not going anywhere. In that moment, a wave of realization washed over Jack. It didn't matter where the ex positioned himself, what mattered was how he chose to act. He could no longer afford to let someone else dictate his worth or define his future. Then let us see how this plays out. You might just surprise yourself, he replied, finally stepping fully into the doorway. As he did, it struck him how liberating it felt to engage openly despite the threat looming outside his protective wall. Jack felt the urgency inside him shift from anxiety to resolve, propelling him forward. Every interaction had become a brushstroke painting the new version of himself, the steady, assertive figure he was just beginning to recognize. He was building a foundation for something solid here, not just for himself but for Sarah as well. As the conversation unfolded, Jack's mind turned towards the future. He found his thoughts drifting toward how the unexpected nature of life always posed tough challenges, each an invitation for growth buried within the confrontation. Let us set some rules, Jack suggested, extending the conversation further. This has to be a dialogue, not a duel. We're open to talk, but this cannot turn into a battle over Sarah. It has to be about what's best for her. Rules? Interesting, the ex scoffed, though Jack sensed a tinge of trepidation simmering beneath his arrogance. The fortress of uncertainty that once imprisoned Jack now felt like it was collapsing. Each word, each decision, dug deeper into the soil of his strength. He was no longer merely reacting, he was forging a proactive stance rooted in personal integrity and shared commitment. As the air cooled with charged tension and the conversation drifted into a new phase of negotiation, the phone buzzed again, a second message breaking the stillness. Jack briefly looked down, noticing how the outside world refused to let them off the hook so easily, but beneath the flickering embers of conflict, Jack sensed the flickers of an ever-evolving inner strength. As the words hung in the atmosphere, he wondered, could he harness this newfound assertiveness to address not just the threats outside, but also the mixed feelings that swirled inside? Would courage become the cornerstone of his new life, or would he remain ensnared in the webs of past insecurities? He took another breath, geared for what was to come, fully aware that the true test lay ahead. And when the doorbell rang again, echoing with the promise of yet another challenge on the precipice of his evolving identity. Jack turned towards the door, feeling the weight of expectation shift as the moment hovered between two conflicting realities. The frigid air seeped around him, amplifying the pounding in his chest. He had just begun to unearth the power within himself, and now he faced yet another test. Uncertainty clawed at the edges of his mind, threatening to pull him back into old habits of hesitation and self-doubt. "Stay here," he whispered to Sarah, glancing back at her with a reassuring nod. Her expression mirrored his own anticipation, a silent show of trust that ignited a sense of purpose in him. With each footstep toward the door, he steeled himself for whatever awaited on the other side. When he opened it, a figure loomed there, the glow of streetlights outlining her silhouette. It was Melanie, Sarah's best friend, holding a stack of letters. Her sudden appearance struck Jack with the force of a lightning bolt. Was she here to help or complicate matters further? "What is going on?" she asked, her eyes darting between him and Sarah, who had stepped closer, curiosity written all over her face. "Just some necessary discussions with her ex," Jack replied, his tone steady. He sensed the tension ripple through Melanie as she processed his words, her expression evolving from concern to admiration. "Good. You're protecting her. That's important." His heart swelled at her acknowledgement. This was what it felt like to have support, to have companions who recognized his growth. "Did you find anything that might help?" he added, gesturing to the letters in her hand. This moment, albeit a distraction, pulled him from spiraling insecurities and pushed him into proactive territory once more. Melanie nodded, stepping inside, and she handed the letters to Sarah. "I found a few old court documents that might shed light on Brian's history." Jack's mind raced. What had the past ensnared? The layers of Sarah's life were still shrouded in mystery, and peeling them back would require not just curiosity but tremendous bravery. "Let us look," Sarah said, her determination seeping into the atmosphere. Jack took a seat beside her, watching her as she unfolded the papers. Each crinkled page bore the potential to unearth not just answers but insights about the collective struggle that had haunted their lives for too long. The papers revealed unsettling truths, cases of harassment, restraining orders, patterns of manipulation. A visceral sense of dread coiled within him as he processed each discovery. These were not just words but a testament to the chaotic forces they were both confronting. "Is this what we're up against?" Jack asked, his voice just above a whisper, now keenly aware of the darkness lurking beneath the surface. It seems so, Sarah murmured, her eyes wide with realization, mirroring Jack's own emotions. He could feel the intensity of the situation wrapping around them like a thick fog. But in that moment, he also sensed a rising wave of resolve. This knowledge was not merely alarming, it was empowering. They had pieces of the puzzle now, tools to fight back together. Jack wrapped an arm around Sarah's shoulders, anchoring her against the tides of uncertainty and fear. "We will face him together," he affirmed, realizing that this was the core of their alliance. They were now allies, united against an antagonist who sought to disrupt their lives. The ensuing silence felt charged with determination, a critical juncture on the road to their shared future. As the conversation with Melanie ebbed, a flicker of irritation stirred within him. The very existence of Brian challenged everything they stood for, a reminder that darkness could invade their lives at any moment. Yet Jack understood that this confrontation, internal and external, was his moment of reckoning. If he was to foster the stability he yearned for, he must go beyond mere words of encouragement and embrace the fight with conviction. "Tomorrow, we confront this head-on. I'll talk to a lawyer, we'll get organized," he declared, his voice resolute. "We need a real strategy, and we'll make sure Brian knows his time is up." The look on Sarah's face ignited a fire in him. She needed him to lead, to deliver not just moral support but also to forge pathways through the impending storm. As they prepared to leave for the day, a sudden thought fluttered through Jack's mind. What if this past shaped not just their present but their future? Pushing away his lingering echoes of fear, Jack now faced the dawning realization that this was merely the beginning of a much longer fight. With Sarah by his side, their dual commitment could redefine the narrative, rewriting the fearful story that once trapped them both. But as he turned towards the door, considering the grim resolution that awaited, he couldn't shake the feeling that Brian would retaliate harder this time. The inevitable clash lurked at the edges of their journey, a stark reminder that they were navigating treacherous currents. Little did they know that the first move would lead to uncharted territory, laying bare the true essence of their relationship as they braced for a battle that could either sink or strengthen them. What they were about to discover could forever alter their path. The time had come to confront the shadow lurking behind them, igniting a struggle that stirred from more than just the conflict. They were bound to face truths about themselves they hadn't even begun to recognize. Jack stood at the edge of their driveway, the autumn sun casting long shadows across the pavement. It was a new day, a day laden with opportunity and clarity. Yesterday's confrontation with Sarah's ex had chiseled away a layer of doubt that had clung to him for too long. Surrounded by the echoes of uncertainty, he found himself transformed. The weight that once pinned him down was now forged into the strength that held him upright, determined to carve a brighter future for both Sarah and Mia. Jack had taken the initial steps he had planned. He had reached out to a lawyer, secured consultations, and gathered resources. As he stood there, he felt actualization wash over him like a cleansing wave. He wasn't just a single dad fighting life's uphill battle anymore. He had assumed a mantle of protector, partner, and champion. It was no longer about survival, it was about thriving. Taking a deep breath, Jack's mind replayed the details of yesterday's meeting. He had articulated their boundaries clearly. Now, standing amidst the faded leaves rustling in the breeze, he envisioned creating a sanctuary, a place where love, creativity, and dreams could flourish, undisturbed by the poison of negativity and past regrets. Could he really achieve this? That determination buzzed quietly within him. As he opened the door to find Sarah and Mia engaged in another colorful arts and crafts project, the sight anchored him further. Laughter danced in the air, a sound that felt like healing. Jack stepped forward, pulling Sarah into a warm embrace. "Today, we'll build our new beginning," he declared, feeling the words solidify his resolve. With each brush stroke they took later, painting their hopes onto poster boards alongside Mia's vibrant creations, Jack saw Sarah beam with renewed inspiration. "I've missed doing this," she admitted, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "It feels good to create." Encouraged, Jack gently suggested, "Let's plan an art show. Just a small gathering with the folks from the community." Sarah's eyes widened in delight as she processed his words. It was more than creating, it was reclaiming joy, a declaration of their lives intertwined. As they poured their energies into organizing the art show, it became evident that they were building a fortress not just against Sarah's ex but against the doubts that had haunted Jack for years. Those moments reflected a fundamental transformation. Each piece of art became a meditative exercise, an outlet for anxieties turned aspirations. Jack discovered he had a hidden talent for event planning, coordinating logistics, reaching out to supportive friends, curating a space that would showcase creativity and resilience. The night of the show was magical. The community arrived in droves, providing a support system that Jack hadn't realized existed. As they mingled, sharing laughter and admiration for Sarah's talent, Jack felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He was standing at the crossroads of new beginnings, the cacophony of past turmoil fading into the background. Each compliment directed at Sarah felt like a win, wrapping them in a quilt of recognition and acceptance, but the pivotal moment came when Sarah introduced Jack, her words reverberating with sincerity. "And this is Jack," she said, her voice steady. "He has been my rock, encouraging me and helping me reclaim my life." The warmth of her declaration rippled through the crowd. Jack stood tall, bathed in recognition for the first time in what felt like an eternity. They weren't just overcoming, they were thriving. Facing their fears had forged them anew. Jack realized that every moment spent defending Sarah, every step taken to organize their lives, had turned him into the type of man he had always aspired to be. He proved to himself that vulnerability could coexist with strength, that confronting challenges could illuminate paths previously obscured by insecurity. As the evening wound down, Jack finally felt a sense of peace envelop him. They had navigated a turbulent terrain together, yet here they stood, hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Sarah turned to him, eyes gleaming with admiration and love, and Jack knew they had not just transformed physically but had also cultivated an environment in which love could flourish. "Thank you for believing in us," Sarah said softly, grounding Jack's thoughts, as she intertwined her fingers with his. "I've never believed more in anyone or anything," he replied, filled with an unwavering confidence formed not in bravado but in authentic connection. This journey had taught him not just the depths of love but also the heights of resilience. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, beautiful shadows, Jack felt a thrill of anticipation, a clear signal that they were ready to face whatever challenge life would throw their way, hand in hand, heart to heart. He had achieved more than building a family. He had constructed a life filled with meaning, love, and belonging. Now, it was time to write the next chapter together. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now.